Many years later, as he faced the firing squad, Colonel Aureliano Buendia was to remember that distant afternoon when his father took him to discover ice. You might have recognized that line. It's the opening of 100 Years of Solitude by Gabriel García Márquez. But believe me, it's more than just an opening. It's a promise, a mystery, and above all, a masterclass in storytelling, all packed into a single sentence. Hello, welcome, and bienvenidos, my friends. My name is Armen Zakarian, and here on this literary YouTube channel, I use as much English as I have to speak about literature not as homework, but as a way to understand the world and ourselves a little better. And today, I want to show you what makes this famous opening so powerful, how it holds the entire novel inside itself like a compressed galaxy, and why writers all over the world still chase its magic. Let's break it down and see why the first sentence of 100 Years of Solitude is one of the greatest in literary history. First of all, García Márquez opens me through. The first words are "many years later." But wait, many years after what? In just 3 words, he throws us forward in time, skipping past everything we don't yet know, as if the story has already begun somewhere off stage, and now we're catching up. It's a dizzying move, like walking into a room mid-conversation, where everyone else seems to know what's going on. The sentence doesn't so much invite the reader as dare them to keep up. And by confusing us so quickly, Márquez also builds immediate narrative tension. We sense that there's a vast backstory we're not being told, at least not yet, and the only way to find it is to keep reading. It's the literary equivalent of stepping onto a bridge with no clear view of the other side. However, the first step that García Márquez makes is so confident, so compelling, that we follow anyway. That leads us to the second genius move. The line immediately draws us in memory. The reader is dropped into the future and must begin to look backward, going back invisible steps, asking, how did we get here? It creates a unique narrative structure where time is already broken, and then stitched back together by the very act of remembering. In this sense, García Márquez echoes the famous opening of Marcel Proust's In Search of Lost Time. For a long time, I used to go to bed early. Note, Proust doesn't begin with action, he begins with atmosphere, with rhythm, with the quiet gravity of a recollection that's about to unfold. Both writers signal from the very first sentence that this won't be a straightforward journey from A to B. This is a spiral, a memory that is shaping itself while being told. And the reader, too, is asked not just to read, but to remember, to enter a story that feels less like something being told to us and more like something being recovered with us. Something we surely knew a long time ago, but somehow forgot. And now the story is just helping us remember. Thirdly, the nostalgic force of this line is sharpened by the fact that we're witnessing a farewell to the present. Many years later, facing the firing squad, the moment is final, irreversible. The future has arrived, and it contains no more choices. The present has collapsed into its last breath. This gives the act of remembering an almost sacred urgency. When nothing more can be done in time, the only thing left to us is to go back to it. And so the instinct to look back intensifies not out of strong emotions, but as a last act of resistance against death. The need to stretch the seconds, to open up past like a folding map, becomes the only way to delay the inevitable. It's the same temporal suspension we find in Dostoevsky, in the moment before a character is executed, or believes he will be. Or, for instance, in Borges, where the infinite often hides inside the instant. Time slows, gets deeper, becomes elastic, and memory is the only space where life can still unfold. The reader holds their breath, and so does Coronel Aureliano Buendia. Not out of fear, but because memory has stepped in and taken control of the clock. Fourthly, this line dives us straight into the atmosphere of Garcia Márquez's magical realism, into the sweltering jungle of Macondo, where a childhood memory of seeing ice for the first time is framed not as a simple event, but as a miracle. And the language reflects that. Pay attention to the verb that Garcia Márquez uses, conocer el hielo, to meet the ice. Not look at it, meet it, as if the ice was not just an object behind glass, but a character, a force of nature with its own presence and mystery. And the boy isn't a spectator. He's a hero undergoing a kind of rite of passage, as if he were taking part in some quiet, shimmering ritual, and ice, of all things, is the one that receives him. That single word choice opens the door to the world we're entering, a world where memory, myth, history, and miracle exist side by side, where ice is not just cold, it's alive, where the impossible doesn't break the rules of reality, it is the reality. And that is, by the way, the very essence of magic realism. Finally, and this speaks not just to the opening line, but to Garcia Márquez's prose as a whole, there's the rhythm. Gabriel, by his own admission, could spend hours perfecting a single sentence. And here, the labor is audible. The sentence begins with a hit, short, heavy, stressed syllables that fall like a verdict. Many years later, as he faced the firing squad, it crashes down on the reader, and the bullets are about to crash down on Coronel Buendia. But then the rhythm shifts. The sentence gets longer, the tempo softens. We drift into memory. Coronel Aureliano Buendia was to remember that distant afternoon. Do you hear that? The tone becomes calm, almost quiet, like a man already beyond fear, turning inward in the final moments of his life. It's a sentence with two hearts, one pounding, one remembering. It delivers death in its first half, and then quietly replaces it with nostalgia. And we start to think that memory, not mortality, will have the last word. Muchos años después, frente al pelotón de fusilamiento, el coronel Aureliano Buendia había de recordar aquella tarde remota en que su padre lo llevó a conocer el hielo. This single sentence sums up the entire novel, its structure, its themes, and its dreamlike narrative style. It is a sentence that teaches the reader how to read 100 Years of Solitude, not as a linear narrative, but as a repeating and mythical history of the Buendia family. The moment you read it, you are already caught in the novel's current, swept along by its rhythm, its beauty, and its irresistible pull into the world of Macondo. And if you stay with it, if you surrender to its rhythm, 100 Years of Solitude becomes not just a novel, but a great journey where you can remember something you didn't know you had lost. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for being with us. I truly appreciate your time. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to like and subscribe. As you can see, this is a brand new channel, and every bit of support helps me and our team keep telling stories like this one. Call me Armin, and I'll see you next time.